You weren't listening. Listen.
That's enough. The pro side, we adhere to, are there any other commenters who are on the list, registered on the list, who are here to speak in favor? And pros, in favor? And the pro side, on this side, using this microphone over here. If not, we will continue with those individuals on the list who have registered in advance to speak on the con side. I understand there is one individual who registered as neutral to leaning to oppose, but we also will make sure they are worked into the comments because they did register in advance. With that, we will go through those individuals who have registered in advance, names are on the list. So we will then move over to this microphone.
So much their idea of
May it please the board.
Would you please state your name as well?
My name is Paul Lundy, UND. I am an attorney. I live in Ames, Iowa. Please consider this letter my letter of objection and this talk to the construction and operation of the proposed Bakken pipeline to be grounded upon the public interest of all of the citizens of the state of Iowa, which I bring to your attention as an attorney at law with encouragement of the Iowa Supreme Court to perform pro bono public service. The proposed Bakken pipeline is to be buried under the surface of the ground. When it leaks, as it inevitably will, the crude oil it carries will foul and thereby ruin irrevocably and forever our precious and irreplaceable underground water aquifer. This must not be allowed to happen. We left the Iowa Utility Board to disapprove the Bakken pipeline proposal. Furthermore, the proposed Bakken pipeline is without merit because the crude oil that is being produced from the Bakken region in North Dakota is presently being shipped by means of railroad tank cars. All of such tank cars can be and should be of heavy double-wall construction. These tank cars should be capable of moving through the state of Iowa without leakage. If present tracks are not of sufficient capacity, additional trackage can be built on existing rights-of-way without substantial cost or delay. There is simply no need for the pipeline and no public interest to be served in granting the Dakota Access application. Thank you.
My name is Jim Evans. I'm from Summers, Iowa. This proposed pipeline is dissecting 3 of our family's century farms diagonally. Farms that my great-grandfather, my grandfather worked for, sweated over, suffered through hard times, and did without so that they could have something to call their own and pass on their legacy to their family. I've spent the last 41 years nurturing and caring for this land. It's some of the richest land in the world, so that one day I could pass it on to future generations, better than when I received it. Now this pipeline wants to put a permanent scar diagonally across it. Driving 70 miles an hour down the road, you can't see the crop loss over a pipeline. But stop and walk the field. I have farmed over a pipeline for 29 years. And yes, it has leaked, but thank God it was natural gas and not toxic crude. All during the growing season, I can take you to that farm and we can walk that pipeline. As you can follow it from one end to the other by the quality of the crop on top of it. And that pipeline isn't near the size of the proposed Bakken pipeline. If you've ever been to a spot where a building has been buried, the crop over that spot is never as good as before. We can take the utmost care in scraping that rich topsoil off and placing it back on top. But the soil structure is ruined and you can never be returned to the way the good Lord had made it. Also with the Vulcan pipeline, there will be hot crude flowing through it. We are told the ground over and around the pipeline will never freeze. The freezing and thawing of the land is what keeps our soils so highly productive. And imagine what will happen in the hot, dry months of July and August to our crops that are being baked over a hot pipeline. There will be a permanent scar across the richest ground in the world, and the value of these farms will be forever less than the neighboring farms.
My name is Holly Fuchs. I live at 806 Brookridge Avenue, Ames, Iowa. Thank you for
Could you
your
please
time.
spell your last name for the public?
Sure.
That she
F
has.
is in France, U is in Uruguay, C is in Canada, H is in Holland, and S is in Spain, not zero. I oppose issuing a permit to build a Dakota Access Pipeline. The issue is more than a decision about control, land use, and jobs. It is a decision that affects all life on Earth. Dr. James Hansen, former head of the Goddard Institute for Space Studies, said, if humanity wishes to preserve a planet similar to that on which civilization developed and to which life on Earth is adapted, climate evidence from prehistoric times and ongoing climate change suggests that carbon dioxide will need to be reduced from its current levels to at most 350 parts per million. The connection between the Dakota Access Pipeline and climate change is that the pipeline will encourage continued and increasing use of fossil fuels whose burning increases carbon dioxide and thus hastens climate change. And I document that with the note that North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple said building more pipelines will create more markets for the state's oil and gas. Carbon dioxide is already at 400 parts per million. We're adding 2 parts per million of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere every year. Dr. Hansen says, unless we turn that around and return to below 350 parts per million this century, we risk triggering tipping points and irreversible impacts that could send climate change spinning truly beyond our control. A dead planet, as hot as Venus, hot enough to melt lead. We need to do everything we can to avoid that possibility. I encourage you to deny a permit to build the Dakota Access Pipeline. We owe it to future generations to be prudent in our decisions now.
Good afternoon. Jane Robinette, 7020 Sharon Drive, Urbandale. The Bakken pipeline is different from other pipelines across Iowa because quite simply we know better now. When you know better, you can do better. Dakota Access isn't seeking to put a pipeline through Iowa because they care about Iowa or Iowans. This pipeline is merely a means to more profit for Dakota Access and out-of-state, private, unnecessary convenience. Their own record and statements about their financial ability to respond to failures of their pipelines speak volumes about what kind of corporate citizen they are and will be. The only discernible benefit to Iowa seems to be the addition of some jobs and economic activity for an unknown number of Iowans for up to 2 years. Balance that against the disruption and damage, both immediate and future, to the integrity of agricultural soil, to the health of a number of waterways and watersheds in Iowa and beyond, and to the climate as a whole. I support jobs. There are hundreds of infrastructure maintenance jobs, from efficient roads and bridges to water transportation to railways and more, providing long-term, non-fossil fuel jobs, all to truly public benefit. We say we want to feed the world. We say we want to preserve our soil, that we want clean water. We say we support renewable energy. We say we want to pass on a healthy world to our children and grandchildren. Enough of the talk. We must act. You, board members, have the power to act, to say boldly, protecting the well-being of our state and our world is a necessity. The long-term value of our land and water and communities is worth much more than a couple of years of this type of economic activity. Now we know better, so let's do better. The only necessity in this debate is to say no to eminent domain, to say no to this permit. Thank you.
Hi, my name is George Enslin, and I live at 427 Pearl Street in Boone. And I just kind of want to say you guys are lucky, you got the best chairs in the house, and congratulations. You're also lucky, and the very recent cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline has given you the perfect balance. You do not have to endanger world-class soil. You do not have to endanger and anger hundreds of farmers who are fighting tooth and nail to prevent the rape of their land. You do not have to trample on property rights, trying to find a perverted, twisted interpretation of eminent domain. You do not have to endanger Iowa's extensive Jordan Aquifer, an aquifer that many hundreds of thousands of Iowans depend on. You do not have to endanger our rivers and streams, the water source of over 500,000 Iowans. You do not even have to tell the union sorry, no pipeline work for you. No, you are very lucky. And then the recent XL cancellation lets you say, move this over to the recently abandoned XL route. The Keystone route has already been subject to 2 environmental studies, and by the state of Nebraska, and from the Dakotas down to southern Nebraska, 88% is already okay. It's already been purchased through voluntary easements. The 12% exceptions is a little bit here, and that's because they don't like the Santor oil. The Keystone route eastern ties into existing pipelines that ship it to the Illinois refineries or south to the Gulf Coast. Make the right decision. All you got to do is say no to building the pipeline in Iowa. Say yes, we recommend that it go to the Keystone route. You will not anger Iowa citizens or farmers. You will preserve property rights, and heck, you'll even preserve pipeline jobs, and you'll keep a comfortable seat. Thank you.
My name is Rosemary Partridge. My address is 2952 390th Street, Wall Lake, Iowa. I am here to ask the Iowa Utility Board to reject the pipeline proposal for all the right reasons. For the environment, to alleviate climate change by leaving fossil fuel in the ground. For the safety of our state waters, for the protection of our productive farmland, and for steering our workforce toward clean, sustainable jobs and building alternative energy systems such as solar and wind power. And just as importantly, the furtherance of democratic principles by rejecting eminent domain for private gain. Speaking as a person who cares deeply about Iowa's land, water, and people, it is unthinkable to me that we should further endanger our already imperiled water and soil resources with this massive project. The earlier supporters spoke of Iowa as having a lot of pipelines under our soil already, such as to say, what would one more matter? Well, number one, this is a much more massive enterprise than any of the other pipelines that do run under Iowa. But I grew up on a family farm in Johnson County, and a pipeline went through our land when I was in high school. I was a teenager, 55 years ago, I was a teenager, and this pipeline came through, and I remember the same kind of talk. That the pipeline would be safe, the proponents said. Well, I talked to my brother on the phone who farms that land to this day, and parts of that pipeline are now above ground. The maintenance of the pipeline has not been as described here today in these cases. It's a natural gas pipeline. It's extremely
Hudson, 1918 Avalon Road, Des Moines, Iowa. In some decades back, the Nebraska Public Power District was shipping nuclear fuel to the state of Iowa from their nuclear plant at Brownville, Nebraska. I was concerned about it, and I stopped it and tried to expose it, and finally stopped it in Creston. I was arrested for the deed, but I wasn't shot, and I wasn't jailed, and I wasn't run over by a train. But I felt compelled in part to do it because a similar shipment of the same material was being shipped from, I think it's the Monticello power plant north and west of Minneapolis. And one of their trains, or the train on the specific track designated for those shipments, there was a derailment and there was graffiti attributing it to the nuclear resistance. The long story short here is this pipe is a magnet to people who would do harm to us through the pipe. It is an explosive product. All of my train adventure was before 911 and Oklahoma City, stuff like this. But my point is, those people are still out there. In fact, there are more of them than there were back in my day. There are people from, I'm going to say not well environmentally friendly, that's an argument, but the Environmental Liberation Front, or Earth First, and other radical environmentalists, but you also have Al-Qaeda and ISIS and other people who have experience with pipelines, unfortunately, who will be drawn to this pipe. The pipe is a bomb. I hope that you reject it. Thank you.
Julia Rendon, 3704 Adams Avenue, Des Moines. I hope that you reject the pipeline for all the reasons that have been given, but I want to focus on the cynical attempt to use eminent domain for a project that will be profitable to a for-profit company. That just seems Orwellian. And to use the eminent domain justification, which is meant for the common good, to allow a private company to make money, and then, because of their limited liability, essentially socialize the risk, seems not only Orwellian, but really reminiscent of what happened with the bank in 2008. So, I would ask you to be good of the wider community not to let this pipeline be built. Thank you.
What corners of the pipeline have left? The ones that were on the speakers list, or some of them didn't, it shows another opponents
I'm
only.
board of the Iowa Renewable Energy Association, and I'm really amazed that we're even talking about the pipeline of dirty energy amid the climate that is taking towards slowly out of control. And I've learned, and I don't know how many of you have, that solar energy could power all energy needs on Earth, times 11,000. Wind energy could also power all energy needs on Earth numerous times. We have water and lakes that could also power all energy needs on Earth. We have geothermal, and biofuels, and gravity, and imagination, and kids who are coming up with amazing ways to reduce our need for energy, to harvest the energy around us. We don't need the dirty fuels. We don't need dirty energy. We don't need dirty energy wars. We don't need a cash-driven economy that crushes life. Like Reagan, Exxon knew that their emissions would cause catastrophic climate change 30 years ago. Yet they and Reagan's quack economists decided to privatize our public world, deregulate our rule of law, and shift costs onto the unsuspecting now and generations from now, so that they could pocket cash that was crushing life on Earth. I don't buy that, and neither should we. My dear Iowa, and my dear IUP, who I know care about Iowa. I know Rex Tillerson cares about his family and his children, and he's crushing his own self, essentially. That's right.
Before we start, I believe we would have speakers number 141 through 144. They're all right. Then I guess we'll have our final two speakers who are registered here at this point. Go ahead.
I'm Alan Roush. You have my name, address, 6135. I was born in Iowa. I don't believe in sticking preaching to the choir, so let me talk to the Union brothers and sisters who are still here. Unfortunately, two of the brothers out there made a good point. One said nobody walked here and nobody took a bike here. The other said we're addicted to oil. Well, I didn't have any choice. I drove 2 hours from Nashville because it was the only way to speak. If some middle school kid had set up Skype or a video conference, I would have done that, right? Makes sense. Now let me talk about addiction, because I've worked 3 decades on trauma floors. You don't feed addiction. You treat it. You stop it. And feeding an oil addiction is even worse than feeding a heroin or a meth addiction. And I wish some of the sisters and brothers were still here, because they know what addictions are. In the oil fields, they're rampant, okay? And we need to treat those as well. Now, I hope there's at least one union member still here so that you can pass this on. There's an ugly word for those who suck up to the company and those who cross picket lines. Hey. I've been on picket lines in 6 states. I don't know. I don't think the decision they make here is that important. I think what will be important will be what happens in the fields. If they decide to allow this pipeline to go through, we all know there will be picket lines and blockades and people putting their bodies on the line. For those of you who are willing to cross that picket line and suck up to the company, you know that ugly. Okay? Don't stop!
Could you bring your microphone a little bit closer to you?
How's that?
That's much better, thank you.
Awesome. So, I'm an LPS student, it's Law, Politics, and Society at Drake University, and philosophy student at Drake University. The first thing they teach you there is that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, we don't spend a lot of time learning about pipelines, but we learn about the history of unions, and we learn about what they've been up against. And what they've been up against most of the time is corporate greed trying to bust their unions, including the energy industry that has put these people here today in a conundrum where they either have to support an industry that's trying to break them and trying to get subcontractors to work, if they could, ideally, on unsafe conditions, or they can go ahead and not try to get this job and be told that they're not going to have the work that they need to survive. That is what the corporations do with unions. They also go ahead and they buy politicians. There is no shortage of people that are willing to go ahead and step up if their friend is elected, if there is economic interest, if there is any reason that they are going to be appointed to a board such as this one that makes these types of decisions. Historically, we learned that that is what has been done to erode the rights, to erode health standards, and what is done every time somebody stands up and goes, we have the best research, we have everything in a row, we are a good company, we have groundbreaking technology, and 30, 40 years later, people like me are studying, going, oh, well, they knew the whole time that it was bad. They put their people in danger. They did everything that they could to keep making that profit, because a lawyer in another room told them that the cost of the settlement and the likelihood of that settlement
was much, much smaller than the potential profits they could make. And that is what dictated this country, and that, I hope, is not what's dictating you guys' vote.
Wow. One more call for those who signed up in advance, who registered to speak. If there are still those individuals in the audience, you would check in over in the staging area. We want to make sure that those who signed up in advance, who are still here, if they are, and have missed their opportunity, let us know. Let this one speaker go, and then the board is going to confer with staff. We have to be mindful of court reporters' time and everyone else. I know I told one individual she would have the opportunity to speak, so I'm not forgetting that. And we also need to talk about from a timing issue as well. Thank you. You may go ahead.
My name is Travis Rasmussen, 108 Warner Street, Rockville City, Iowa. I'm here today to defend my farm that I purchased with the Game Farmer loan, which to me is like trying to defend myself against a band of robbers, trying to take what I'm working hard to pay for. I had no intentions of buying my property with a pipeline that I spent $100,000 or more making improvements on to be able to produce a better crop. This pipeline is coming within 500 feet of our family farm acreage, and our well is only 40 feet deep, and which is similar to many other wells in the area. Should there be a problem, it would be very easily to clue that. This farm of mine, if the pipeline goes through, it will essentially render it unable to produce a decent crop because of the damage to the infrastructure that is in place there. They're trying to bully people in our community into signing their leases and telling us that we won't get as much if it goes to eminent domain, and trying to stage pipe to make people think it's already a done deal. We come here today with the thinking that maybe you guys have actually already had your minds made up, and this is all just a show. And I guess I hope you guys will make the right decision and protect Iowa's farmers and the resources of our environment for generations to come.
We'll just take a short break, and we will resume very quickly.
I will keep this live because I don't know how long they're going to confer. Huddle up like some football players before they go to the line of scrimmage.
How are you doing?
Well, pretty good. I'm running off my power pack, and I even got my hotspot plugged in my power pack.
Oh, wow.
So, but I'm still running.
You're the last person seated, standing, however, in this area.
Yeah, because they don't want to take it all.
Right.
Since I have no one behind me, I might want to raise my there's some chance in the back. I'll give you a shot of that. What is trying? Mic off. Your mic is off.
5:15, for those individuals who have not registered or signed up in advance, we first will start with the Reverend, who did come up to begin with. We will still stay with 2-minute timing. If there are individuals on the pro side who would like to speak, who have not registered and who have not spoken before, they may have that opportunity to do so. We ask that whoever wishes to speak until 5:15, people cannot have spoken before, and it's 2-minute limits. You will need to give your name and address, you will need to give your name to our staging area.
To go home now,
and then
would you be
we'll
willing
move
to
seats,
go?
and you'll also need to give your name and address and city as you speak up at the microphone.
Yeah, they're going
Very good.
just till 5:15.
You
want to stay until 5:15?
Well,
If we can get everybody to go now, would you be willing to go?
I want to capture her at least.
Oh, yeah. No, we don't know when we're going.
I want to first ask you to I'm a native Iowa. I was born here, and I live in Boone right now. Here. So welcome to my home. I've heard a lot of talk today about people that need these jobs, and I heard it reiterated over and over and over. And I just would like to point out that you are sitting currently in a county, in a community where half the people can barely afford to feed their families and heat their homes. So don't come in here and tell me and tell us that you need jobs. We understand. We understand the need to feed a family. We understand the need to heat your home. We get that. One of my very good friends came up here and talked about integrity, and I hold that to be true as well. I find that Iowans have quite a bit of integrity. And when we were here originally and we spoke with Dakota Access and we listened to their proposal, we immediately, because of our job, went and go check each of those facts that we heard. So much of it was lying. So much of it. They lied by omission. They stretched the truth. And I can tell you this right now, that any company that's willing to lie to you once will lie to you again. That alone is enough for us to say no. Carissa Price from Fairfield, Iowa.
Please spell your name for the record.
Carissa, C-A-R-I-S-S-A-P-R-I-C-E. And this feels so democratic, and I really appreciate that we come together and that you hosted this, because it just feels really nice, like to be American. My concern is that Europe, India, China, and I think the U.S. are moving to renewables, and that once the renewable takes hold, it's a big movement. I mean, Sweden's going renewable, Denmark's going renewable. The need for these gases will no longer be needed, and the pipeline will still be in the ground, and the spills that will have been created will be left to Iowans to take care of. Also, in my small hometown, there's a renewable, Ideal Energy, which is a solar plant, and they're employing over 12 people in our hometown, putting solar panels up on our local community very successfully. They're growing, they all have big houses and really good jobs. So I think that's the future. If there's only 12 jobs created on a long-term basis from the Bakken pipeline, that 12 jobs can be created so much easier, like in my community with Ideal Energy. And that's what I'm going to put on my house. And my friend
also put solar panels on her house. So that's our future. Thank you. If you would please come state and spell your name and your address as well. Oops, that's my fault.
My name is Richard Keller Jr. and I'm from Oxford Junction, Iowa. And I'm glad I was able to get here. I didn't know whether I could or not, so all I have to say is the gentleman that was talking about the drug abuse that's going to come with this pipeline, on this job and all of our union jobs, you have to take a drug test before you're hired in. And if anybody suspects you of doing drugs, you have to take a drug test right then and there. Any accident, something gets in your eye, you have to get checked out, you take a drug test. We try to keep that completely out of it.
This guy, I think, might.
And as far as the land being destroyed, I've done a pipeline about 17 years ago in my neighborhood for 119 miles I worked in. And none of that farmland is actually better shape now than what it was when they started. So
He said
all
none of
these
that
that
is
they're
better
talking about in the
than it was when
future,
they started.
well, you know, in the
I don't think
future
he
we
realized
can
what
have
he
cars.
said.
And the way things are now, these people that are against it, they pollute the ground worse than what this pipeline will just by driving a vehicle. It leaks. You add up all the people and put their cars in a parking lot. See how much oil you have in just one day, let alone the farm equipment. Before I joined this union, I used to be a field service welder. I'd go out in the fields and fix heavy equipment for farmers. And they'd have busted lines here and there, oil spilled everywhere. I fixed the piece and they just went on. They never clean up. We clean up any kind of spill. It's contained and put it in a hazardous spot. So all these complaints they're afraid of is something that ain't gonna happen. And if it does, it's gonna be so far in the future. But right now, their technology with the smart kids going in that pipe, they stop that. I've done hydrostatic testing on pipe. I tested a pipe 50 years old. And it seeded with the rust on the inside, but the smart kid said that's getting too thin. It exceeded the pressure yet. And today,
All of three people.
Madam Chair, I'm John Klaus. My wife, Carolyn, was on the list, but she couldn't make it, so I'm here. I promised to talk to her.
Could you please spell your last name?
Klaus. Thank you for letting me keep my promise here to speak. I know next Monday you start the very serious process of taking testimony on the evidence that will necessarily establish whether the applicant meets the criteria for a utility serving the people of Iowa and whether the application technically meets the requirements of the statute and the administrative rules. I know you'll pay careful attention to that and with the aid of your staff, give it a very thorough examination. And I also suspect that whatever decision you make is probably not going to be satisfactory to the other side. And there will be a long process of adjudication before this is all resolved. My hope is that as this process works its way through, everybody involved remembers that this is Iowa, and we're in Iowa. And that name, Iowa, comes from a Native American expression for beautiful land. And this is a beautiful land. Vast fields of grain, rolling prairies and pastures full of cows and calves. And I hope that there's not going to be a day when those cows and calves go down to the creek for a drink and drink poison. I don't know why we can't have that energy of the workers who are here today devoted to building a modern, progressive energy infrastructure rather than working on making one last grasp for the profits of an obsolete and declining energy industry. Thank you very much. I hope that 100 years from now, Iowa still means beautiful land.
I'm Pam Mackey Taylor, Taylor. I'm the conservation chair for the Iowa Sierra Club.
First, please give us your address.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2200 South
31st Street in Marion. I'm the Conservation Chair for the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Farm. As a result of all of the objection letters, it's my understanding that they are not going to be put into the record, and we urge you to make those objection letters part of the official record. Second, it is very clear that the archaeology and environmental studies are very deficient, as can be seen in the Doug Hart and John Dershak direct testimony. It is very obvious that nobody is going to look at some of these issues. The Army Corps of Engineers will look at some of the issues on significant water bodies, but the DNR is not going to be looking at or requiring anybody to look at state endangered species. Obviously, the only one who can require that is the Iowa Utilities Board, and we hope that you will force Dakota Access to do more detailed environmental studies. Once Dakota Access gets a permit, there is no book that will require them to look for any further environmental issues or even archaeology issues. And although they are supposed to stop digging, and if any kind of archaeological issues are detected, there's no requirement to book ahead of time and to avoid those areas. So I would urge you to require an environmental impact statement and study first, and before even considering the permit.
Andrea Rogers, Keokuk, Iowa, 7 Terrace Garden. Okay. I am here today as a representative of the Keokuk Municipal Water Works. Our water intake is on the Mississippi River, and the proposed pipeline is 5 miles north, which if there was a spill or an issue with, it would have a direct impact on our water intake. So I am here to implore you to think about water intakes and the proposed. We don't have a secondary source, so if there was a problem or a spill, then it would have a direct impact on our water source, which is a town of 10,000 people. So the proposed pipeline and any considerations. So I would also ask for oversight and inspections and how you're going to encase the pipe. Thank you very much.
First off, thank you for the exercise, and thank you for this process. I'm Luke Hefner, H-A-F-F-N-E-R, and I am from Lytton, Iowa. We are a small organic farm. My wife and I own 4 acres, and we focus on organic crops and basically raising our kids in the best Iowa way possible. We recently dug a 160-foot well, and it's 2 miles from the proposed pipeline, so I'm concerned about water quality issues. Although most of the fellows that were defending the job are not here. America's engineers have estimated a $3.6 trillion shortfall, and just to highlight where we are, schools gets a D, C minus for, anyway, there's a report card D plus, and it is basically highlighting infrastructure maintenance jobs, including water quality, sewage improvements, road repairs, and a number of other areas that we know we need to improve in Iowa. So I believe that there's other jobs besides pipelines that we can focus on. Basically, they don't involve fossil fuels, and I believe the workers here necessarily don't want to be involved in controversial projects like the back-end over a simple desire to work. So please encourage our leadership and your unions to provide dollars for less controversial projects. I also have another jobs question for the board. If approved, which heaven forbid we do not, how many hydrological jobs for inspection will Dakota Access be required to maintain the life of the project? And how does the IUB actually view companies like Exxon, who are being found to have lied about their products for over 30 years and necessarily contributing to climate crisis we are currently enduring? And also the ideas that recent studies say that the Middle East may be inhabitable due to heat by 2100 on the current trajectory. These all are very necessary things to consider. And not only the Iowans part of this, where we need to protect our land and water, but the world and our children. That's one of the most important things that you guys can set a better trajectory as far as leadership goes.
Hi, my name is Peter Clay. I live in Des Moines, Iowa. My last name is spelled C-L-A-Y. Thank you very much for this time. It's been a long day. I've been very inspired by many of the speakers. I appreciate the passion that many people have brought to these public hearings on both sides. I just want to focus on two things in the little bit of time I have. Several speakers have mentioned global climate change, the climate crisis, global warming, all of that. I think that that's the central piece that we have to keep our eyes on. And all of you, the three of you, you need to really consider an expansive role as you make this unprecedented decision for the Iowa Utilities Board. You really need to imagine how profoundly significant your decision will be. The President and the State Department last Friday made a momentous choice, and they made it in some ways for symbolic reasons, because what we're facing is so enormous that for most of us it's hard to even get our minds around it. Let's be honest. Accepting the reality of climate science and what it's telling us is a pretty difficult thing to do. We're all approaching it in our own ways, in our own lives, trying hard to make a difference with our voices, with our choices. You have an incredible moment. This is the defining moment for the three of you right now. As you go through these hearings, and you take the testimony, and you think about all of this. I just hope that you will realize that Iowa is a place where leadership comes from, and that you will see your role as leaders. As the President of the State Department recently showed how they can be leaders in the global stage. Iowa is looking toward your leadership. Now, please reject this pipeline.
I think there may be one more.
We have one commenter left before you begin. When you turn things over to Chair Hughes, who's going to talk a little bit about how things will go, I think, starting Monday. That's what I understand.
Thank you. I just want to take this opportunity to again invite the interveners, the council, that we will be opening the doors to allow everyone the interveners and parties to enter the building at 8 a.m. on Monday, that the public will be allowed to enter at 8:15. We want to make sure that everyone is situated, all of the documents and other materials that you're bringing in are in the building. We then will begin the hearing at 9 a.m. and at that time we will take any preliminary issues. There are a couple related to cross-examination that we discussed on Tuesday when we were here in the building. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of that information that was provided previously, and answer any questions. So I wanted to again remind everyone that is the process that we're going to be using on Monday. I also want the audience to be aware that there are a number of interveners and parties that also made public comments today, and they will again have an opportunity when we have the eminent domain portion of the hearing as property owners to make comments. So we wanted to share that with you, make sure you're aware, and I'm going to turn it back to Libby for our final speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. You may begin.
I wanted to thank you all for allowing us this opportunity to...
Please identify yourself. Thank you.
Sandra Mabry, Anderson Mary, A-G-O, R-A, Anderson Mary. 600 South 2nd Street, Fairfield, Iowa, 52556.
If you could please pull the microphone a little closer to you, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. So I wanted again to thank you for allowing us this opportunity to influence your decision. And it's a huge decision that you're making. I'm a daughter, I'm a mother of sons, I'm a mother of a daughter, I'm a grandmother, I'm a sister, I'm a niece, I'm an aunt. and all of those things. And I grew up in a beautiful world, world of inspiration, of opportunity, of grace, of God, of unity. And I want that world to continue. Humanity is coming to a pivotal point in its future. And you're having to make big decisions. We're all having to make a big decision, and every single big decision that we choose in every single morning, whether it's for expansion and love or whether it's for contraction and small gain. And I just hope that your decision will reflect and will enhance the world and allow this opportunity. And America, we are so blessed. We have such freedom. We have such an opportunity to do good, not just for our own lives and our families' lives and our country, but for the world. And I'm just hoping that your decision that you make here will reflect after you look into your own hearts and you listen to all these beings that have come to speak, both sides, because they all have wonderful points, that your decision will reflect an earth that will continue on in grace and God and beauty and community and unity as one humanity, one world, one life, one heart for the betterment of mankind. Thank you very much.
With that, I thank all of the participants and those who sat in the audience today. We thank you for the appropriate compassion for each side, and I appreciate that. With that, the session is adjourned. Thank you.
Dakota Access, let's be clear. We don't want your pipeline here. Dakota Access, let's be clear. We don't want your pipeline here. Dakota Access, let's be clear. We don't want your pipeline here. Dakota Access, let's be clear. We don't want your pipeline here. Dakota Access, let's be clear. We don't want your pipeline here. Dakota Access, let's be clear. We don't want your pipeline here. Dakota Access, let's be clear. We don't want your pipeline here. Dakota Access, let's be clear. We don't want your pipeline here.
That is going to do it for my street today. I'm going to go ahead and take it down and pack it up because it'll be time for a ride to Des Moines. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the street.